Master Sorcerer. I have summoned you here, for I see great potential in you.
The Sorcerer's Apprentice, a scherzo for orchestra by Paul Dukas, was first performed in Paris in 1897. Like Fantasia itself, the composition is a translation of one medium into another, a humorous retelling in music of Goethe's ballet, Der Zauberlehrling, The Apprentice Magician, about a magician's lazy apprentice who, while his master is away, uses the incantations he has learned to bring a broom to life and make it carry water for him. The film begins with the sorcerer conjuring up a bat and changing it into a butterfly, as his apprentice, Mickey Mouse, weary from carrying water, wipes his brow. Bored with his own tricks, the sorcerer yawns, removes his tall pointed hat, and leaves his cavern. As soon as he is alone, Mickey puts on the sorcerer's hat and commands his broom to come to life, pick up the buckets, and carry water for him from the fountain outside to a huge vat in the cavern. Once he has the broom settled into this routine, Mickey falls asleep in an armchair and dreams that he is standing high on a cliff, conducting the clouds and stars and planets in their courses, and calling up waves from the sea below. When the waves crash over him, Mickey awakes in alarm to find that the armchair is floating in water that fills the cavern. Mickey commands the broom to stop, but the broom walks right over him on its way to the fountain for more water. Mickey grabs an axe and chops the broom into splinters. Each splinter comes to life as a new broom. Each new broom carries 2 more buckets. This broom army marches inexorably to the fountain, fills all its buckets, then lines up to pour a flood of water into the cavern. Mickey's efforts to bail out the cavern are completely futile. Frantically, he climbs onto the sorcerer's huge magic book, which is riding the whirlpool, and searches for a formula to stop the brooms. No luck. At this moment, the sorcerer returns, parting the waters as he descends the stairs. He commands the flood to vanish and the broom army to become one broom again. Then he contemplates the apprentice who did all this mischief. Chastened, Mickey takes off the sorcerer's hat and returns it to his unsmiling master. He hands the broom to the magician, picks up his 2 buckets, and starts to tiptoe away. Mickey does not see the sorcerer smile slightly. He takes his 6th tiptoe step on a harp note and is halfway out of the cavern on his 7th when the sorcerer smacks him on the bottom with his own broom. Mickey hightails it out of the doorway on the rapid 1, 2, 3, boom of the final 4 chords. By 1937, Americans identified with Mickey Mouse, and the world identified Mickey with America. There were 1,500 Mickey Mouse clubs in the United States alone, and others springing up worldwide. President Franklin D. Roosevelt wanted a Mickey Mouse cartoon included every time movies were shown at the White House, and the League of Nations called Mickey an international symbol of goodwill. England's King George V refused to go to the movies unless a Mickey Mouse film was shown, and Queen Mary once came late to tea rather than miss the end of a charity showing of Mickey's Nightmare. Along with Walt Disney, his creator and alter ego, Mickey embodied America's spirit of adventure, our insatiable curiosity, our love of innovation, and our optimistic belief that there was a happy solution to everything. Like Roosevelt's America, the only thing Mickey had to fear was fear itself. Mickey Mouse was recapitulating our history in his cartoons, particularly our love of new technologies. It was fitting that when Walt tried the first sound-on-film cartoon with Steamboat Willie in 1928, Mickey made his first try at piloting a steamboat and ended the voyage as a star. He burlesqued Limburg in Plane Crazy, trainmen in Mickey's Choo Choo, teamsters in The Plowboy, and cowboys in The Cactus Kid. He and Minnie Mouse crossed the continent in a covered wagon in pioneer days. He engaged in athletic competition in Barnyard Olympics, was an explorer modeled after the real-life Trader Horn in Trader Mickey, a tourist in Mickey in Arabia, a football player in Touchdown Mickey, and a steam shovel operator in Building a Building. He was the Klondike Kid, the male pilot, and a hero in Two Gun Mickey, in which he rescued Minnie from bandits. Like Walt, and most Americans in those days, he had a terrific curiosity, and he'd try almost anything. Confronted by a beanstalk, he climbed it. A mirror, he went through it. Poltergeists, and he cleaned house. He even conducted a band in the midst of a cyclone and brought the musicians back to Earth safely and on the beat. Disney's composer set all this action to music, but action was king in the Mickey Mouse cartoons. On the other hand, in the Silly Symphonies, Disney's other cartoon series, the music was paramount. Here, the action was drawn to fit original scores written by such Disney composers as Frank Churchill, Lee Harleen, and Albert Hay Malotte, who made a name for himself as the composer of a musical setting for The Lord's Prayer. Early in 1937, Disney decided to make a Silly Symphony set to a composition that already told the story and was recognized as music of quality. The musical story he picked was The Sorcerer's Apprentice, an ancient legend of a magician's assistant who experiments with his master's powers and discovers that he cannot control them. It was first written down by the Greek satirist Lucian in the 2nd century. Early in the 19th century, Goethe wrote a ballad on the theme, which he titled Der Zauberlehrling, the Apprentice Magician. In 1897, the French composer Paul Dukas used Goethe's poem as the basis for an orchestral scherzo, L'Apprentice The Sorcerer. In May 1937, Walt Disney's agent contacted the American agent for Dukas' publisher about purchasing the rights to use the music in an animated cartoon. By the end of July, Walt had the rights, and he was considered signing a well-known conductor to add still more prestige to the ambitious project. One must wonder about the element of luck that now enters into Disney's adventure. As has been seen, Stokowski described his first meeting with Disney in a Los Angeles restaurant as a chance encounter. 34 years later, in an interview with the editor of the Royal College of Music magazine in London, Stokowski recalled how Disney, quote, told me of a French composition about a kind of a great magician and a bad boy. He liked that music very much, and so we discussed it. He said, "You know, how would you like the idea of making a picture of that? I have some thoughts of how that magician looked and how the bad boy looked, and it is very picturesque, brilliant music." So, gradually, we decided to do it, and it was completed. Unquote. I am all steamed up over the idea of Stokowski working with us on The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Disney wrote his representative on October 26, 1937, less than 2 months before the premiere of Snow White. I feel that the possibilities of such a combination are so great that we could stretch a point and use his 100 men, as well as work out an arrangement to compensate him, personally, for his time. and we could well afford to record the music in any manner Stokowski would want to do it. In fact, I think so much of the idea that I have already gone ahead and now have the story and work with this crew, on the chance that we will be able to get together with Stokowski and possibly have the music recorded within a short time. Walt cast Mickey Mouse as the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and suddenly, the motive force behind the Mickey Mouse and Silly Symphony cartoons merged into the apotheosis of the Disney cartoon, the best possible action with the best possible music. When Walt got all steamed up, Walt's studio got all steamed up. Walt assigned Perce Pearce as animation director for the project, with Carl Wallburg helping him on story, and Lee Harleen as musical director. The following January, Walt had to take Pearce and Wallburg off The Sorcerer's Apprentice and assign them to set up a Bambi unit. He then chose James Elgar, who had animated animals on Snow White, to direct the short. To supervise the animation, Walt assigned the same team that had supervised the animation of the Seven Dwarfs: Mickey expert Fred Moore and Vladimir Bill Tytla, who animated the Sorcerer himself. In order to give Mickey a greater range of expression, Moore gave him pupils in his eyes for the first time. November 2nd, 1937, brought a letter from Stokowski. I am thrilled at the idea of recording The Sorcerer's Apprentice with you, because you have no more enthusiastic admirer in the world than I am. By November 8th, the first section of the rough continuity was ready. By November 9th, Section 2. On November 15th, Perce Pearce provided all 700 members of the Disney staff with a synopsis of Goethe's ballad, Der Zauberlehrling. The composer of the Sorcerer's score based his music on a ballad by Goethe, in which is described the predicament of an apprentice who appropriates the magic of his master, commands a broom to carry water for him, then discovers that he does not know how to stop the broom. When everything else fails, he chops the broom into splinters with an axe. Each piece, however, magically rises to become a separate broom, continuing to carry water into the Sorcerer's castle, which is now becoming flooded. Only the intervention of the Sorcerer during a stirring command phrase toward the end of the music brings things into order again. Goethe in a nutshell. Walt Disney was always telling himself and others his stories over and over again to see how briefly, clearly, and simply the theme could be stated. He once ran into animator Ward Kimball in the parking lot and told him the entire plot of Dumbo in 3 minutes. Now he told The Sorcerer's Apprentice, as he saw it, in 3 sequences. The thought is this: Mickey is an apprentice wanting the power of the Sorcerer to do his work. Then when that happens and he has that power, then he dreams of his great power. But when he awakens and finds what the broom has done, and he hasn't the power to stop the broom, we find Mickey having to resort to an axe to try and stop the broom's work. Walt Disney, now only 5 weeks away from the premiere of Snow White, was on the verge of having more money and power than he had ever had before. So it is perhaps not surprising that he was most interested in Mickey's dreams of power. Stenographer B. Selleck made a note after the November 13th story meeting that Walt expressed himself about this dream several times by saying that Mickey could be here, there, anywhere. It is like a dream actually is. There doesn't need to be any flowing continuity. Walt thought of Mickey up there on that rock directing those planets and those comets and pulling up the ocean as a caricature of a conductor, and he gave his ideas on the layout of those scenes. Have a lot of upshots looking up at the guy, you know, like you'd shoot up at an orchestra conductor as he is conducting. Naturally, Stokowski doesn't burlesque, but we caricature. It was as if Walt were using Mickey to caricature himself and his dreams. The conductor of artists rather than musicians, who now looks over a cliff into the future and sees that everything is possible. The two paragraphs from the written continuity of November 6, 1937, dealing with Mickey's dream, gave as good a picture as we may ever get of a dreamer who suspects that his dreams are about to come spectacularly true. We leave the broom working, Mickey asleep, and dissolve into a dream sequence. In this, we show Mickey going to fantastic lengths with his new power. It is the picture of the typical little man and what he would like to do once given complete control of the earth and its elements. In his dream, Mickey is having a spectacular lot of fun without being malicious. We see him strutting along a low skyline in silhouette, his shadow cast up into the clouds. He struts to the brink of the cliff overlooking a calm sea. He whips it up to a rhythmic frenzy, waves dashing on the rocks as the music builds towards its climax. With the wave of his hand, Mickey causes huge storm clouds to gather over the ocean. His actions are those of a conductor leading a symphony orchestra of the elements. He points a finger to the left, a bolt of lightning flashes. He points in the other direction, another bolt of lightning explodes. He repeats the action with both hands at once, and a terrific crash is heard overhead. Each outburst could be synchronized with the dramatic spot in the music. Mickey is enjoying himself immensely. When he has whipped up a terrific storm, he calms everything down. At this point, we dissolve back to Mickey in the sorcerer's chair, still asleep. A huge smile of satisfaction spreads on his face. However, the room already is so full of water that Mickey's chair is beginning to float. To give his artists a clear picture of what he wanted, Walt pulled two images out of his legendary visual memory. He urged them to make Mickey look like Reginald Gardiner in Broadway Melody of 1937. I think it is the one before his last one, the scene where he's a cop in the park and makes believe he's conducting an orchestra. And Walt wanted Mickey to have some of the fire of an actual bandmaster he'd seen. Any of you guys remember Creatore and his band? He asked, recalling the bandmaster who would be immortalized 20 years later in the hit Broadway musical The Music Man, with its reference to the great Creatore in the show-stopping 76 trombones number. He had hair that stood right up, said Disney. He was a big man, fiery. When he came on to conduct, he always came in from the back and had to climb over chairs and players, kicking them aside, coattails flying, then a stiff bow. Then he really go at the music like a windmill. Walt's visual memory and eye for the movements that reveal personality were among the most important inspirations to the artists in his studio because, as he said, our most important aim is to develop definite personalities in our cartoon characters. Until a character becomes a personality, it cannot be believed, and belief is what I'm after. In pursuit of believability, Disney constantly demonstrated to his artists the series of revealing gestures, such as those of the great Creatore, that express the character's personality, and his artists constantly referred back to Walt's interpretation as they struggled to bring those characters to life on the screen. Ironically, while Disney was investing Mickey's personality with his own dreams of power, Leopold Stokowski on the East Coast had been thinking about the personality of the Sorcerer's Apprentice too, and the unexpected result of the maestro's thinking arrived in the mail on November 29th. May I make a suggestion? which perhaps is entirely impractical or does not fit into your other ideas? What would you think of creating an entirely new personality for this film instead of Mickey? A personality that could represent you and me. In other words, someone that would represent in the mind and heart of everyone seeing the film their own personality, so that they would enter into all the drama and emotional changes of the film in a most intense manner. You may have strong reasons for wishing Mickey to be the hero, but it seems to me that looking ahead into the future, there may be many films that you might wish to make with interesting, highly colored emotional music background, and it might be well to create one or more new characters so as to enlarge the range of characterization. It seems to me that one of the most potent factors in the worldwide popularity of films is that the onlooker enters personally into the story and puts himself or herself in the place of the hero or heroine, and by doing so feels every moment of the drama. That is why I feel that if you create a new personality which represents every one of us, it might be a valuable factor in the years to come and enlarge the scope. This is merely a suggestion, which discard immediately if it does not interest you. It definitely did not interest Disney. Before Fantasia was done, his studio would create many new characters, enlarging its range of invention to include an undersized out-of-step mushroom and the towering prideful devil on top of Bald Mountain. But he ignored Stokowski's suggestion in his reply and in his production. Disney had the strongest possible reason for wanting Mickey to be the hero. He may have dressed him like Dopey in a long robe and soft slippers, but the Mickey in The Sorcerer's Apprentice is Walt Disney at the time of Fantasia, having risen in just a few years from conducting a few associates in the band concert to becoming the dreamer on a mountaintop conducting the stars. So, just as America identified with Mickey Mouse and the world identified Mickey with America, so Walt's Disney identity was entwined with Mickey's. He dreamed Mickey's dream of being given, quote-unquote, complete control of the earth and its elements, a dream that resulted in Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and Epcot Center. And he built those parks and made his pictures on the dream that he and Mickey Mouse shared with his beloved Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, the dream of having a spectacular lot of fun without being malicious. The mythic irony of the experiment called The Sorcerer's Apprentice is that it didn't stop until it had turned into Fantasia, and by the time that dream was over, Walt's chair was beginning to float. Fantasia was a peaceful experiment infusing pictures and music whose immediate success was doomed by World War II. Like a conflict in some Promethean myth, the war ended with the beginning of the nuclear age, the age in which man, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, set into motion forces that can be as helpful or destructive as the animated brooms, and, like the brooms, may escape our control. It was said of the Disney version of Three Little Pigs, which set the nation to singing Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, that it was the true folklore of the Great Depression of the 1930s. It now seems that The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which most people know in the Disney version, is the truest folklore of the nuclear age.
Mr. Stokowski! Mr. Stokowski! My congratulations, sir.
Congratulations to you, Mickey.
Gee, thanks. Well, so long. I'll be seeing you.
Goodbye.